Hello everyone, and welcome to our 11th week of Grace Creatives Online. My name is Desiree and I'm the Director of Grace, and we are excited to be doing another session with you today. What we're going to be doing today is a wrapped yarn birch tree painting, and when you're done it's going to look something like this. So we're excited to do this project with you today. If you got a kit from us, you should have all of the materials that you need in order to do this project. And if you're doing this with us from home, you should be able to get these supplies fairly easily. So I'm just gonna start by going over all the materials that you need, and then we'll jump into the first step. So off here to my left, I have some washable paint, and I have red, black, green, yellow, blue, and white, and you will be needing all of these colors. I have a cup of water. I have about 8 feet of yarn. I have an 8x10 canvas. I have some tape, masking tape, or just regular clear tape will be just fine. I have 2 brushes, a sponge brush as well as a regular paintbrush. Some napkins for dabbing, and a paint palette or a plate will be just fine as well. So yeah, that should be all of the materials that you need in order to do this project. Make sure you set up in an area where you have plenty of room. Maybe put a tablecloth underneath your canvas, just in case you make a mess. This is washable paint, so it should come out fairly easily if you spill it. But yeah, so go ahead and set up your area and we will get started with the first step. For the first step of this project, you're going to want to grab your yarn, your canvas, and your tape. And what you're going to do is you're going to take your yarn and you're going to tape one end to the back of the canvas. Just need to grab a little bit of tape. If you got a kit from us, I wrapped some of this blue tape around your sponge brush, so you can just pull a little bit of that tape. Just tape one end to the back, and you're gonna start wrapping the yarn around the canvas. And what this is gonna do is it's gonna create the trunks of your tree. So if you look at this one, you can see the white space on there. That's actually just where we painted over the yarn, and the white space is just basically blank canvas. So we're just gonna wrap this yarn around about 6 times or so. You might wanna space them out a little bit differently. This isn't a scientific thing that you can just kind of make it look however you want. But just take it and wrap. I gave you enough yarn so that you should be able to have about 6 trunks. And then when you get to the very back end, you're going to take another piece of the tape and just tape the back end. So when you're done, it should look something like this, with the 2 pieces of tape on the back. So go ahead and get that step done, and I will come back with the next step. So for the next step of this project, you're going to need your paintbrush as well as your green and yellow paint and your paint palette. And what you're gonna do now is you're gonna be doing a little bit of color mixing. So just take some of that green and some of the yellow and mix that together. And when you do that, you'll get a little bit more of a lime green. And what we're going for here is to actually get a few different shades of green. So that way, when we paint, we're getting some texture. This is definitely an abstract painting, but if you look at the bottom there, you see some dark green and some light green. So what we're gonna be doing is just creating a few different shades of green, so that way when we start doing the dabbing, we have some different colors to work with. So I'm gonna mix basically 3 different shades of green here in the center, and you can add some white in there too, and the white's gonna really lighten it up and add some more color variance. But yeah, I'll just take a few minutes mixing a few different colors of green using the yellow, green, and white, and I will come back with the next step. So when you're done mixing, your paint palette should look something like that, and you can see I've got 3 different colors mixed in the middle there. And what you're gonna wanna do next is grab your sponge brush, and you're just gonna start dipping that into the paint, and you're just gonna start sponging the bottom section of your canvas. So again, you wanna get some different colors, and that's really gonna help make it look like there's some texture and make it look a little bit more natural and abstract. So as you dab, you can do 1 color at a time, or you can kind of mix them up, but you're just gonna dab the bottom about just a little bit less than halfway up to the top. So I'm gonna come up to about just like an inch higher than where I'm at right now, and just make sure that the whole bottom section is covered with paint. So when you're done with the sponging, it should look something like this. You should have some color variations and spots of different colors. The more mixed, the better. And another just little tip that you can do is you can take your paintbrush and you can just kind of dab with your paintbrush as well, just to add a little bit of a variety in terms of texture. And yeah, you can really go as light or dark as you want with the green. But yeah, so moving right along to the next step, you're gonna need your sponge brush again. You're gonna wanna really rinse it out and dry it off. I dipped it in my water, and then I had to use one of my napkins just to fully sponge it out to try to get as much of the water and color out. But for the next step, we're gonna be doing the sky in the background here. So same thing, you're gonna wanna grab your paint, but your blue and white this time, as well as your paintbrush. And you're gonna use a different part of your paint palette to mix together some colors again. So again, we're going for some variation, so you can just do the same thing where you create 3 different shades of blue that you can work from. So go ahead and mix those 3 shades of blue, just using blue, white. You can add a little bit of yellow or green. If you add green, you're gonna end up with a little bit more of an aqua color. But just go ahead and take a few minutes and mix 3 shades of blue, and I'll come back with the next step. So after you have your 3 shades of blue, I've got mine there. You're gonna do basically the same thing that you did on the bottom with the green, but now you're gonna go to about 1/3 of the way up on your canvas, so you can leave some space for the leaves and the branches, and just kind of do the same thing where you dab together the 3 colors and create the background of your sky. So just take a few minutes and continue to do some dabbing, and you can kind of, go over into your grass so that the 2 areas kind of blend together. And you're gonna wanna cover up to about right here with the blue. So after you've got your blue section done, it should look something like this. And just a few tips and tricks for this section to keep in mind is that this sky is like a pretty light blue, so make sure when you're doing your mixing that you add in enough white, because the white's gonna really lighten up the blue. The blue that I gave you is a pretty dark hue of blue. And then also when you're doing like between the grass and the sky, you just want to do a little bit of light blending between the 2 so that you end up with a nice line between the 2. But we're gonna go ahead and move on to the next step. Basically, we're gonna repeat this same process. So you're gonna wanna clean out your sponge brush really well again. And we're gonna go back to the green. And this time we're gonna start focusing on the branches and the leaves in the tree. So you just wanna use some of your green that you've already mixed, or mix some new green, and you're just gonna start dabbing. I'm gonna go with a lighter color for the leaves than the grass this time. So yeah, just start mixing together some more of that green and dabbing along the top until you have most of the top area covered. We don't want to cover all of this because I'm going to actually add some blue kind of in between so that it looks like there's some branches. So if you're looking at this one, just do a little bit more of some light dabbing just to get to the background, and I will come back with the next step. So after you've got some light dabbing done along the top, you're gonna wanna take your paintbrush, and what we're gonna be doing now is we're gonna be creating the branches, and we're gonna use a little bit of a different method for painting. We're gonna take your paintbrush and kind of create circles so that they look like branches coming off of the trunks. So take your paintbrush and just kind of set it down, and then just do a circle like this so that it kind of gives the illusion of a branch. And you're gonna do that all along the middle areas until you have that whole section covered. Like that. So after you've got most of the upward section covered, looking something like this, we're gonna go ahead and move right along to the next step, which is just gonna be to remove the yarn. So we're not finished yet, but we're gonna go ahead and remove the yarn from the painting. So and then you can see when you take this off, it looks something like this. Got your branches with your sky and your grass. And what we're gonna do next is we're gonna let this dry for a few minutes. It should only take maybe 10 minutes or so to dry. But yeah, just go ahead and let it dry for a few minutes, and I will come back with the next step. All right, so hopefully your canvas is mostly dry. If it's not completely dry, that's fine. But you'll see we're starting to get a little bit closer to it looking like a tree painting, but we're gonna go ahead and move on to the next step. The next step is just gonna be to grab your paintbrush, make sure it's washed out, and your black paint, and you're just gonna dab your paintbrush a little bit in the black paint, make sure you've got a pointed end, and now you're just gonna create little black marks along the trunk of the tree. So super simple, no real pattern or rhyme or reason. You can take it from the outside in, you can do some in the middle, but just kind of take a few minutes and put these little black marks in the trunk of your tree. It's gonna add a lot of texture. You can do it all the way up to the top, even on that white space that we haven't fully painted. So I'll just show you one of these that I've got done. And just make sure every tree is covered, and we'll come back with the next step. When you're done marking up your trunks, your painting should look something like this. I kind of did a variety of lines and circles just to add a little bit more texture and make it look a little bit more natural. But yeah, we're getting super close to getting finished, but I'm gonna go ahead and move on to the next step, which you're gonna need your paintbrush as well as your green paint again. And now we're gonna basically just do some more filling in to the top, and you can see with this one, I covered the branches, so we're gonna go ahead and cover the trunks. And we're gonna use a variety of colors. I'm just gonna kind of dab in my green. I do wanna go a little bit darker, I think. But you're gonna be using that kind of circle technique that I taught you earlier to make it look a little bit more like branches, but you can also come along over the top of it and use the sponge brush to get a little bit more texture. So just take a few minutes and again, just do some more of these circles and cover. You can start covering over the top of the branches. And then, so you'll end up with some circles that look kind of like that. And then as you do that, you can take your sponge brush and kind of go over the top to kind of fill it in. The other thing that you can do for this section is just to make it look a little bit more realistic, you can add some blue, just a little bit of blue around the edges. So if you see there's some kind of white space, there was some white space there and I left it and I just added a little bit of blue just to kind of blend and make it look like some daylight is coming through. That'll just make it look a little bit more natural and realistic to put some blue in there. So just take a few minutes using those techniques to fill in your branches along the top, and I will come back with the final step. When you're done with texturizing your top using those techniques that I gave you, it should look something like this. And again, I just did that by using a variety of the swirling method and the dabbing method on the top. I added a little spots of blue to make it look like there was some daylight coming through the branches, and you can kind of see through and see some of the black spots that are along the trunks as well. So it just makes it a little bit more natural. But I'm gonna go ahead and give you guys the final step of this project, which is just gonna be to add some flowers and plants in the bottom. So you're just gonna take your paintbrush, wash all that paint out of it, and now you're just gonna be using just that little bit of red and yellow, and you can actually dip your paintbrush in both of them at the same time if you want, and just kind of just dab little spots of the red and the yellow along the bottom. This is definitely abstract painting. This isn't like very precise, so you can kind of just dab it along the bottom like that, and it's just gonna give the effect of looking like little flowers poking through. And you can do the little circle method where you circle along the top, add a little bit more of the yellow just to make it look like there's different flowers, and or that you can see like the little center of the flower. Again, this is just a little bit of abstract art, but I'm just gonna add a little bit of yellow to each one of these reds that I added on here. And this will be the final step of this project. So this is super simple project that we're doing today. A lot of fun. I was excited when I found it because anyone can do this. So that's exciting. So I'm just gonna show you guys my final product here. You can see I've got some of the flowers in the bottom, the trees along the top, and now our yarn tree project is complete. So thank you guys for doing this project with me today. Hope you enjoyed it, and keep your eyes peeled for our next Grace Creative session. Thank you very much. Bye.